So one superstar returns and one is going to not for a little bit longer. Joel Embiid, we see the latest on the altercation that happened and the effects of it as well for the big fella. Not only that, Paul George, after his 76ers debut, then he's going to return to the Clippers, this time in the 76ers uniform. We've got all that and more coming your way right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Kayla Santiago here alongside Keith Pompey with you each and every day on Locked On 76ers. And your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On 76ers newsletter, so make sure you go subscribe today. There's a lot to get into right now, so we will not be seeing Joel Embiid for 3 more games that he is active for due to his suspension. Not only that, Paul George will go over a little bit his 76ers debut, but also what he's going to do against the Clippers, his former team, and then a little bit of a recap of what we saw in the first game of the West Coast trip. So we're going to get into it in a moment. And today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for 20% off your first purchase. So this is kind of what we've been waiting for, right? To see the effects that it will have on Joel Embiid after the altercation in the locker room. So right now, the Philadelphia 76ers, he has been suspended for 3 games in Joel Embiid. Keith, we've talked about this a little bit. There's no timetable on his return in terms of injury. So now Nick Nurse doesn't have to answer the injury question anymore. So that means at least maybe one NBA investigation will stop for the time being.
Yeah, it will stop for the time being. Now it's going to be kind of like, well, coach, how's Joel feeling? Does he feel good enough to serve a suspension yet? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like, I mean, here's the thing. We knew it was going to happen, but at the same time, the Sixers did expect Joel to play on this trip, and it could have been as early as tomorrow. So, you know, I feel like if I'm the 76ers, I really want to get this thing started now. Like, okay, Joel Embiid is going to be suspended Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday, and then we get him back for the Knicks game, because here's the deal. I don't know if they could beat the Knicks without Joel Embiid right now. So if I'm the Sixers, I'll just basically get it over with and have them ramp up whatever you have to do. But basically, I'm letting them serve the suspension as soon as possible.
Yeah, you look at it too, and it says, okay, well, you could eventually have him back for the Knicks, right? Because you look at the Clippers, the Lakers, and then you go on and see the Hornets before New York. But then it brings in the question, is that going to be a game that you want to see Joel Embiid in going against Karl-Anthony Towns in his first game back? Not really, but they're not going to win without Joel Embiid. I mean, Cat is just going to have a field day. You know, Guerschon played really good last night, and I loved it, but he's not defending Cat, and Andre Drummond's probably going to get into some foul trouble. So Joel Embiid, I definitely think is the only way that they can win those games. But right now, when you look at it, do you feel like Nick Nurse is going to say, all right, well, bringing him back against the Knicks is just going to be way too risky, and, maybe he isn't 100%, or if he is, that's not the game you want to ramp him back up? Or is it, you know what, we need to win some basketball games, and this is the time to show him off? And the centers in the Eastern Conference, this is what we've all been waiting for, to see this matchup come up soon.
I think it's the latter. I think you have no other option, right? I feel like, Joel, unfortunately for him, and the crazy part, it is a back-to-back, right? So he's probably going to miss one. He's going to miss one of the two. So it's up to them, but I feel like you just don't have a choice. You don't. You basically forfeited that when you got suspended. Right about now, we're looking at the 76ers. They're 1-5. They have the second worst record in the Eastern Conference. They showed some improvement yesterday, but at the same time, you look at it, you need him to play. You really do. Now, again, they're both pretty good games, right? So no matter what, you look at it this way. So do you go up against Cat? a guy who he's dominated, and yeah, Cat is going to have an advantage because he played. But then the next night you go up against the Twin Towers against Cleveland. So it's still kind of crazy, right? So I mean, this is a crazy stretch. They're going to go up against the Knicks. We're bypassing these next 3 games. You can go up against the Knicks, then you have Cleveland, and then you go to Orlando against those young guys, and then you have Miami. So with Bam, athletic. So I just feel like right now, if you're Nick Nurse and you're the 76ers, you're like, bruh, I'm sorry, but Paul George had to come back against the Phoenix Suns. You got to come back against the Knicks.
And I think it's an interesting take you have there too, because when you look at it for Joel Embiid, not only are you looking to get him back as soon as possible with the suspension, but if he doesn't come back and all of a sudden you're waiting to have him active for games so he can serve that suspension, then how does the NBA look at it? Because they've already had an investigation of Nick Nurse making claims of not talking about Joel Embiid, and that was an issue for them to get fined. So when does the NBA step in and says, okay, well, he's progressing, now he has a suspension, but you're kind of withholding it, you're pushing it back, doesn't play those games. I just don't see in any type of world where that ends up good for the Philadelphia 76ers. They have 1 win and 2 NBA investigations. It is time to stop it, please. I cannot take it anymore. So I think that's what you have to do. And you don't want to rush the guy, but at the same time, you can use these 3 games to get him better before the NBA once again has to step in and say, all right, guys, what's going on here? Because you can't keep pushing this back.
Exactly. And let's keep it real too. Another thing is you can't keep pushing it back. But if you're saying that Joel Embiid, I talked to Nick Nurse on Sunday. Yeah. He said to me, ideally we hope to have him back. That's the plan, to have him back this week, right? On this road trip. That's what they wanted, right? They said everything is going to plan. Now we witnessed them go up against before they played on Monday. They had the easiest schedule in the NBA, and they were 1-4. So now they're playing these elite teams, and you're going to tell me you're going to keep Joel out? Unfortunately for them, if they had to do it all over again, I think they would have hoped that Joel came back sooner, and that way he could have warmed up against these teams. But now it's about to get real, and they need him. They really need him. So, like you said, if he doesn't play, then the league is going to look at it. But if he doesn't play, that's going to hurt the Sixers from a competitive standpoint, because it goes from 3 games to actually 4, 5, maybe 6. So, you gotta just say, bro, you got to come back and play real rap.
And it's really crazy to think that this early in the season, we're saying you have to come back and play, but it happens to be now that the NBA is involved, now that you have the suspension, that adds a whole nother layer to everything. When you're having reports come out that he could possibly come back against the Clippers as early as that game or against the Lakers, you can't keep pushing it now till later than that. And I'm not somebody that wants to see Joel Embiid come back hurt. I want him to be 100% healthy before he comes back. But where do you draw the line? Because I would love to say that you could hold him until December, maybe, if he's going to be injured this whole time, but then you're not going to win basketball games, right? You're not going to win against a guy like AD down low. You're not going to win against a guy like Cat down low. You're just not. You are just not. So when you look at it now, it's not only saying, all right, we want him to be healthy. The NBA is going to come in. This is way too much drama. Then you could possibly lose draft picks if there's more investigations. It's just too much. This needs to happen. We need to see him play. So I think, I don't want to say it's a bad thing or a good thing that he got suspended, but I do say that, it gives him more time off. Maybe that's what he needed. And now you look at it and say he can come back. Fingers crossed, he will be 100% healthy. So we're going to take a look, though, at his counterpart coming up, because we finally got to see Paul George on the court and what we expect to see from him coming up as well in the next few games, especially when he returns to the Clippers. We will touch on that in just a bit. But first, Build is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch Build points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle, and earn more points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOn to start earning points with your rent payments today. And we have to tell you more about Game Time. There's a lot of good games coming up, and you're going to want to get some really good deals. And I'm talking about the Philadelphia team that has an upside right now on the gridiron. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. They will be taking on the Baltimore Ravens on December 1st, and there's a fantastic deal for that brought to you by Game Time, a super deal going on right now. And if you want to check it out, it's $36 off for the lower level 152 row 39. Make sure you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download the app today on your app store. It is completely free. You will not want to miss it. Once again, that is Game Time. Make an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, so we have a whole lot to talk about with Paul George. First and foremost, he will be making his way to where he used to play on the Clippers, and now he's a Philadelphia 76ers. But I want to touch on his debut just a little bit more. Keith, what would you like to see out of him in the regular season debut? We saw him a little bit in the preseason. I want to take you to that last shot, too. He said maybe a little bit better decision-making. What were your thoughts on how the game wrapped up with PG, especially there at the end?
It's weird because I think Paul was hard on himself because he missed the last shot, right?
Yeah.
It came in, it rimmed out. To me personally, I felt like that they had him being more the facilitator a lot, trying to set other teammates up, when I felt like they should have been more trying to get him involved. So when he took that last shot, he was a little bit out of sync. Paul George had 5 shot attempts in the second half. He went 1 for 2 in the third quarter, and then he missed all 3 in the fourth quarter. But he was more of a facilitator. So, I just felt like he got in the rhythm. He was hot in the second quarter. He came out a little bit in the third. And then all of a sudden, it's like they took him out of the game. So to me, it was a tough shot because of that. And I just felt like maybe because Maxey was hot, go to him. I get that, Paul, you want him to be the closer, but I didn't really have a problem. I didn't have a problem with him missing the shot. I just felt like he just was ice cold in regards to shooting. It just, I don't know. I don't know. They just need to do a better job of keeping him involved, in my opinion.
So we're going to break this down a little bit more in the next segment, but I want to take us back to what happened even before the 76ers got the rock. Kelly Oubre gets fouled out, and then they don't get that offensive rebound, and then Kevin Durant's able to get it back and go up and score. So they get a second chance opportunity. So in my mind, I'm saying, all right, well, Kelly Oubre's out, and this team can't grab a rebound to save their lives. So that also was paying dividends to what happened there. And then you could tell that they want to get the ball out to Tyrese Maxey at the end. And it was just a little bit too late as the clock ticked at 0. I will say that I would like to see Paul George look at the floor a little bit more in that situation. There is going to be times where he's going to take the shot, but I think that with this team, especially with these 3 superstars, you're going to have to figure out whoever has the hot hand should be taking the shot at the end. There's been plenty of times where Joel Embiid tries to force things at the end of the game, and the last 3 minutes, he's just a turnover machine, and Tyrese Maxey is going off. If that happens, then it's Tyrese Maxey's shot to take at the end and be the hero. If it's Paul George that's red hot, he should be the one taking it. They need to feel that out a little bit more. I didn't love the shot selection. It wasn't really even a good shot either. It was defended pretty well. Now, if he makes it, everybody loves him and everybody's happy, right? So that's what happens if he makes it. But Tyrese Maxey was red hot. I think you have to give the rock to him. Nevertheless, it was Paul George's first game of the regular season, so there's going to be a lot of chemistry to build right there. He's returning to the Clippers. Anything you've heard from PG about the excitement of that is a little bit of a revenge to the Clippers as well? Or is he just happy to be on the court in a 76ers uniform?
You know what? I think it's the latter again. And here's the deal. The reason being is because when we look at it, when they made that trade, it was not the trade, when he came there in free agency, and basically turned down the peanuts that the Clippers were going to give him, right? So, when you come here, you're thinking like, all right, the Sixers are going to be the team to beat. We're going to have Joel Embiid. We're going to have Maxey. We got this great free agent class. We're going to be one of the best teams. Now you fast forward it to right now, and they got the second worst record in the East. You look at the Clippers. The Clippers finally won a home game. They snapped a 3-game losing streak. No one knows if Kawhi Leonard is ever going to play again, right? So to me, everybody's going to have that storyline like, yo, the prodigal son returns. Yeah, he wants to prove that the grass is greener. Benedict Arnold, all this other stuff, right? But when we really think about it, these are two teams in desperate need of a win. And I think that's what it is with Paul and them. Like, yesterday they did some things that they looked good, but they couldn't close the deal. To me, that's the focus. And then also you gotta figure out a way also to win without Joel Embiid. We saw the changes that they made in the rotation late. Is that going to continue?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yabusele played great. Is he going to step up and be the center? So to me, it's like the Paul George thing. Yes, I love the storyline. It's great. But right now, the Sixers have bigger issues than Paul George going back to a place that was only willing to give him half of what the Sixers paid him.
It's interesting because Paul George did talk a lot to Kawhi Leonard when making his decision to come to Philadelphia, and there were a ton of reports being able to talk about this, but he basically asked Kawhi in his decision, what did you like about Nick Nurse? And it was, Nick Nurse is hard on you at the right time. He wants to play his way and he won't back down from that. And that's not saying he's going to not take any type of insight from players, but there's a lot of coaches in the NBA, especially coaches that aren't as seasoned and that aren't as respected as somebody like Nick Nurse or even a Doc Rivers or other coaches. When you look at it, Eris Spoelstra, Pop as well, when you look at it, it's a players' league. It really, really is. And that sometimes can even happen as a coach. Shoot, we saw it during the Brett Brown era with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not saying he wasn't a great human. I loved his personality. I loved, what he was able to bring for Joel Embiid's years. But Brett Brown was the guy that can take a team from the bottom and develop them, but he could never get a team past really that second round. So when making his decision, he says, what is Nick Nurse like? Kawhi says, well, he's somebody that really will push you, will want to play his way, but he's also going to make sure that you're able to come out on top. And that was not only a big decision for Paul George to come, but that comes from a lot of respect from Kawhi Leonard, who won a championship, who's a superstar caliber player with the Raptors that year too. So a lot of that decision comes from not only Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Now, granted, that's a huge part of it, but it's also the head coach situation. So is it really a homecoming? I don't think it's going to have that feel. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that go into this Clippers matchup. What are you looking forward to most just overall going into this matchup coming up?
Really, I just want to see if they could play better. I mean, I just want to see if they can get, a pretty good, I just want to see if they can, close a game out and everything like that. I mean, I do. It's not really like, I don't even know. I mean, the Clippers just been struggling. Like, it's weird. Like, James is going to want to defend going to want to go berserko. I want to see who's going to guard him. I want to see if APG, they're going to put you on James? You know what I mean? So basically those are the things that I really want to see. I mean, aside from that, I think that the game lost a lot of luster. Like, it's two bad teams. Like, wrong. Like, they're 3-4. That's the Sixers would love to be 3-4, but I mean, they beat the Spurs. Like, it's not like they came back and beat OKC. So I just want to see if the Sixers can just close it out more so than individual matchups.
I'm excited for the storylines in general, just the James Harden. How is he going to act? How is PG going to act? Are him and Tyrese Maxey and Harden and Maxey going to talk in the beginning of the game? I'm excited to kind of see all of that go down before the game, before the play even happens on the court. It should be interesting. But something I didn't expect was how close it was against the Phoenix Suns. We're going to touch on that a little bit coming up on a game where Paul George was able to make his 76ers debut. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com. And we have to look at some Monday night action going on. Monday Night Football happening as well. And also Thursday Night Football will stay with this week, the Bengals and the Ravens, as the Ravens are -6.5 favorites. That's this Thursday coming up that you will not want to miss. So many bets on Monday Night Football coming up too. If you want to go get ahead, go to FanDuel right now to place your bets. That's America's #1 sportsbook. Be sure to visit FanDuel today to place all of your sports bets. There's no better place to do so than FanDuel. And moving on to Hims, sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option and prescribe your medication. Ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed either. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Make sure you go check it out today. So for the Phoenix Suns, as they bring Keith right back in the Philadelphia 76ers, I didn't think this game would be as close as it was. So I want to bring up a few topics. Paul George did not look great in the first quarter. He kind of comes out into his own in the second and the second half as well. That's the second quarter and the second half. Not only that, how about Tyrese Maxey? 5,000th career point, was laying it up from beyond the arc when he needed to. Tyrese is such a special player, and it was for the first time that we were able to see him and Paul George play together. I liked what I saw, and I know a lot of people are going to say, Kayla, well, it was a loss. How could you like what you see? I feel like for the first time that this team kind of had a sense of who they were and where they were on the court. Now, it wasn't perfect. Paul George was out of place in some instances, but I saw a lot of Kayla Martin being scrappy, getting boards, diving on the floor, doing the things that he needed to do. So Tyrese Maxey letting it up a little bit. The cohesion is not perfect. The chemistry needs to get better, but I never thought that this would be down to the wire against the Suns in PG's first game of the season with the Sixers.
Yeah, it's two ways to look at it. Like the one thing is I do think and again, I'm gonna give the Sixers props. I do think that they were more cohesive. You had guys who were more in their comfort zone, doing certain things that they're not going above their pay grade, so to speak, in their ability. So they look great. They look rusty. But I also think that they're banging their heads because they really let one slip away. They could have stole one. And the reason being is, if you look at it, typically, and the Sixers have done this a lot when they were dominant, where they would go up and they would play an undermanned team or they would play a struggling team. And next thing you know, they would allow that team to hang around a lot. And sometimes they slipped up and lost, or sometimes they barely won. I feel like the reason why I say they let one slip away is because in my eyes, I think the Phoenix Suns were like, look, they don't have Joel. Paul's just coming back. They're struggling. They're old. They're this and that. And if you notice, KD really didn't impose his will until late. Like he was just like a bystander. And then he took over. And you knew that was about to come. And at that particular point is when the 76ers ran out of gas. So again, I do think that they did play great, but I'm looking at it more like you knew they were going to come after you. you knew they were going to wake up and say, we got to play hard at the end, and they let it slip away. But I do like what I saw. Like you said, the one thing that I will say is I felt like there were a couple times where, Maxey could have passed to PG to get him involved, and he was looking for his own shot, right? And
Yeah.
I just felt like you got to get this guy. You got to help Paul George out a little bit to get him a little bit involved. But yeah, it was something to build upon. They just need to close now.
And I think that that's going to be something that obviously comes with a few more games under their belt. But I'm kind of on the opposite wavelength there. And it might just be because I really didn't expect them to be close in this game. Now, it's the Phoenix Suns coming back. I'm not surprised, just like you, that Kevin Durant late in the game was able to light it up. I mean, it's KD. The way when he chooses to dominate, it's like you're playing a video game. Like it's the B button and it's forward all the time and scoring, and there is no stopping. It's just crazy how good he is being able to create his own shot. He's one of the best scorers, if not the best scorer in the league currently. So when you look at it right now, you say to me, okay, it's Paul George's first game back. I really didn't expect it. So I was actually shocked that they were able to take them that long in the game. Now, do I think the Sixers giving up a little bit of a lead and not able to close it stinks? Yeah. But then in the last segment, I also pointed to Kelly Oubre getting fouled out and then not really having the guys in there to be able to get that offensive rebound. There was just little things that they need to clean up, definitely those fouls, but this gives me a little bit of confidence going forward, definitely, especially against the Clippers, going into that game saying, okay, this team played at a different intensity with PG on the floor. And to me, that's really the first time we've been able to see it this season. Somebody else I want to highlight, though, and I think you already know where I'm going with this, Guerschon Yabusele, the dancing there. He was so fun. Keith, I don't know if it was the Olympics because that's how he was playing. He had the dunks up there. He was able to get 5 threes, his NBA career high. I mean, he was just so fun to watch. And the one thing that I really liked was Paul George, a lot of the times, was the guy to find him. And it kind of reminded me of when Jimmy Butler and Joel Embiid played. I'm not comparing them at all. People. But when Jimmy Buckets would pass out to Joel and say, shoot it, add that to your game, just shoot it from beyond the arc, starts adding that into his game. Guerschon is not Joel Embiid, but if Yabusele can hit that triple and be more confident in it, and he's already having one of the superstars, Paul George, saying, go up there and get it, that's a really good sign for somebody that's going to be coming off the bench during this season.
Yeah, you have to say that he's probably been one of the more consistent players that they had.
Yeah.
Also, I'm looking at it. That was a career night. I mean, The 19 points was a career high. The 5 threes were a career high. So yeah, he was phenomenal. I mean, and the funny part is not funny, but I know he missed those shots at the end, and there are going to be some people to say, "Oh, it was clutch," and he missed them. He like messed up. I also think that it could have been he was tired. He probably didn't have any legs because he played a chunk of minutes. Like, I mean, they gave up on Drummond early in the third quarter, midway through the third, and this guy didn't come out. So, I feel like that's something like, okay, so far this early part of the season, they identified 2 people who can help you that they didn't know. Caleb Martin, you know what he can do when he stays out of foul trouble. And Yabusele, right now, he's a guy that can do more than just bang. He can hit threes. He can stretch the floor. He's someone that they could depend on. So, yeah, that to me, that was a positive last night for the 76ers.
I like that they're developing his outside game a bit too, because when you think of Yabusele kind of coming in throughout the season, especially when Joel is back, he's probably going to be pushed to that 4 spot and Drummond will be at the 5, them coming off the bench. Now, Nick Nurse might play a rotation where Yabu kind of comes in at the 5 and there's no Drummond and Joel out there, but I'm talking about when everybody's healthy. So if he can develop a little bit of that outside game where they're crashing in on Drummond, or he can just back off the block a little bit and hit those outside threes, I'm not expecting him to do it 24/7 all the time, but we've talked about him and KJ Martin, and right now I'm going with Yabusele if I'm picking up that number 4 off of my bench coming in. Now, KJ can really stretch the floor a little bit too, but Guerschon has been consistent. He's been fun. He just seems like he's been waiting for this opportunity forever. And my mind just turned to maybe it was the Olympics in him last night because he was just ready to go And the one thing is, once again, Paul George having that confidence in him. So I think it's great for him to develop it, Keith, especially when Joel Embiid comes back, because if he is playing at that 4, it's a good way for him to kind of get out of the way, hit the outside shots while Drummond's in the middle.
Yep. I just think I think where it's going to come down to is like how consistent he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because right about now, let's face it, now you're in the scouting report. Now you're going to have people, they're not going to leave you as open as much. So that's the next step for him. And then also, I think that, again, he's a good piece. I'm not going to look at them, any of them, not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now, and look at him and try to say, okay, this guy is going to be the second coming of, an elite scorer off the bench,
Yeah.
right? But I like what he brings. It's just that now people know about him, right? They know that he can hit this shot, and let's see what he can do when he's dependent. It's kind of like Tyrese Maxey. The next level for Tyrese is when there's no one else on the floor. How can you create for others? Meaning no one else like a Paul George and stuff like that. That's his next step. I think for Yabusele, the next step is, okay, they're going to always have a guy on you. Because think about it. A lot of those threes he hit, he was wide open. So now it's just the step is, what are you going to do when they scout you and they have somebody running at you or someone guarding you? Can you still do the same thing? But I like what he did.
The saying is that it's easy to get to the top. It's tougher to stay there. I'm not saying he's at the top, but he had a career night. Where can he take that from here? We'll see if he can be an impactful rotational player going forward. The 76ers back in action Wednesday night at 10 p.m. against the Clippers. It'll be the homecoming and reunion of James Harden, Paul George, and everything in between. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you all tomorrow.